being a musician, it's something that you do, but you also love it, and it's a core part of your identity. So how do you extricate those things? Whereas I think that lots of people who do jobs that aren't music, they can really close the laptop and put that to bed at the weekend. But it's hard. I think it's harder for us as musicians. And there's a researcher who talked. I mean, she wrote a paper back in 2002, so this was like a long time ago now. But she even talked about how freelance musicians, are in danger of self-exploitation. That's what she calls it, binge purge work pattern. So and so like you end up exploiting yourself. And then then later on, there's different researchers who've talked about how like the climb of social media as a promotional tool has actually increased that feeling amongst musicians of just like, gotta keep putting out content all of the time. This thing like you just end up exploiting yourself.
Yeah.
Because you would never do it to another person. You know what I mean? If you had someone that you were telling to do that, you wouldn't do it. But the way you treat yourself sometimes, and sometimes it is genuinely just because you love it, and you get sort of, we all do it, don't we? You get hyper-focused on a thing, and then the time has passed and you're like, oh God, I've just spent 2 hours doing this and actually I'm super hungry or whatever. But then other times it isn't because you love it, it's because you feel like you have to do it because this is what's going to make me succeed. But then when anyone asks you about it, you're like, oh, it's because I love it. It's like, sometimes I do worry. I mean, I don't know if you get like this, but sometimes on bad days, I worry that like freelancing is like a Stockholm syndrome. Like it's my captor, and then I've just learned to like, oh, I love it now. I know that deep down it's not like that, but sometimes I do feel myself doing that thing, you know, when you go, I'm my own boss, I choose my own hours, and deep down you're thinking, ooh. So
I think that's a great way of looking at it, because it is the one thing that will never leave you. And so you have to become, it is Stockholm syndrome. I like that. You've got to love the thing that's, I do feel trapped a lot of times every week.
I'm glad it's not just me.
No, absolutely. I'll feel trapped by my, I guess my ambition, but also my, like you say, it is, what was the word? Where you,
self-exploitation.
Self-exploitation. I feel like I exploit myself like crazy. And I mean, I was going to say, because was your PhD title or was something musical identity and how we define ourselves as musicians? Yeah,
it was sort of to do with that. That was sort of the bottom line, was that musical identity is something that runs through you so strongly that it's sometimes difficult to see outside of that. And that was kind of but my actual title was actually a lot more boring than that. It was how do conservatoire graduates manage the transition into the professional world, exploring the career building process. But when you write a PhD title, you don't make it too catchy, because you want people to be able to Google it in a way that, so you want to get the keywords in, like that's, so conservatoire and transition and career and those things. But actually my ultimate thing was about how do we make those career decisions, and also what is a freelance musician's life actually like. I've always been fascinated by, like I said, like the idea that, you know, you get people who write in the paper who is like top flight baritone. That's really interesting to hear what his life's like. But that's not the reality for like musicians in general. And we know it at the moment, like how misunderstood do musicians feel right now, where there's money for some and not for others, and there's musicians who it turns out are basically contracted, but if you dig deeper, they're self-employed, so they're not entitled to any money or whatever. And like we as musicians, the life that we live is quite, I think, just misunderstood, and I sort of wanted to shine a light on that as well.